Hello everyone, welcome to another Blender tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to create an animation from a still image. I'm going to show you how to create this animation right here. And this whole tutorial is based on the video CoPilot After Effects tutorial creating an animation from a still. Okay, let's get started. Now, before we can go into Blender, we're going to have some preparation work ahead of us. First of all, you're going to need to download this image right here. You can get it at Video CoPilot. I'll put a link into the description. And then you can open up it with GIMP. Now, the goal here is to first of all separate these smoke clouds from the rest of the image and then use the cloning tool to kind of generate a clean background. To isolate the smoke, you can use the pen tool, the pass tool, and I'm just going to go over this very quickly just to show the principle, because you're going to have to do it yourself and put a little more time in this than I did. Copy it with Ctrl-C, insert it, Ctrl-V, and create a new layer. To generate a isolated background, you can use the clone tool, as I said. Increase the size to about, let's say 50, and then just I guess you get the idea. I've already prepared this. I've created a clean background and isolated the smoke clouds. And when you have this done, you can head into Blender. Now in Blender, let me first talk about some basic settings. First of all, we're going to use the Blender render engine. And then we're going to use an add-on called Import Images as Planes. You can activate add-ons under User Preferences, Add-ons, and then simply search Image. And you should see Import Images as Planes, and if you check this box here, you activate the add-on. We are not going to use the plane and the cube, so delete them. Set the camera back to center and move it up about 5 units. Now let's import our images. Import images as planes. Select these two and then make sure you select shadeless. That way the images, the material is not going to be affected by any lamps, and simply display the image as it is. And make sure to set use alpha and Z transparency. Now import those images, change the view mode to texture, and now we see the background and the smoke layer. Let me bring the smoke above. What has happened now? Let me bring the smoke above and move it up a little bit. Now the smoke is directly above the background layer, but if you look at it from camera, we can see there's a gap. And that's of course because the smoke layer is closer to the camera than the background layer. And to avoid this happening, select the camera, go to Camera Object Data, and switch from Perspective Camera to Orthographic. This way, all the objects are going to appear just the same size, no matter how far or close they are to the camera. It's pretty nice if you're working with images as planes. Now, of course, the images are too small, so we select those and scale them up until they have a size that fills the whole camera viewport. Now in order to create the illusion of some perspective shift and a moving camera, we're going to move the background plane in a way that the foreground changes faster than the background, like it would if the camera was actually there and it was a video. You would see this perspective shift. Now, to do that, we switch into edit mode, move the upper corner about half a blender unit to the other side, and the lower corner 1 blender unit there. And if we would change the shape to exactly the opposite corners being shifted, we would create the illusion of a perspective shift and a moving camera. In order to animate the shape of a plane that we edited in edit mode, we need shape keys. You can add a shape key under object data, add one shape key for the basic shape and another one that we are going to edit. Make sure you have selected it, switch to edit mode, then move all those corners back to where they were. And move exactly the opposite corners in the opposite directions. Now, if we go back into object mode, we see it back into the basic shape, but if we select the first key and adjust the value, we can see the plane shifting from one side to the other. We want our animation to be just 4 seconds long, so frame rate of 24 multiplied by 4, and we have a 96 frame long animation. We go on the first frame and hover our mouse cursor over the value field and hit I to insert a keyframe, and then we go to the last frame, change the value all the way up and hit I again. Now, if we play back the animation, we can see the background plane shifting like there was a camera moving. Of course, the smoke should stay in the same place, so we go to the first frame, select the smoke, move it where it belongs, hit I and insert a location keyframe, go to the last frame, move it until it's in the right position, hit I again, and now if we play back the animation, we see the smoke stays in the same place and the background changes as if the camera was moving. Of course, right now it looks stupid because the smoke doesn't move. In order to fix that, we're going to do something very similar to Adobe After Effects Liquify Tool. We go into edit mode, subdivide the plane quite a few times, and now if we would, with proportional editing enabled, if we would scale one of those points, it would look as if the smoke gets closer to the camera or moves. But first of all, to get our animation done, we need to add shape keys again. Basic and another one for the shape where we're gonna end up with. Go back into edit mode, and now you can select single points and rotate them around a little bit, scale them up, rotate and scale them up. Just in order to make it look like the smoke was moving. And you can adjust how many of these points you influence with your editing by using your mouse wheel to adjust the circle around here. And if you do that for the whole smoke layer, I hope I'm not boring you right now, but it takes a bit of time to do all this stuff. Select it. And now, if we go back to object mode and check out what we've done by adjusting the value, you can see the smoke is moving like almost like it was a video. Now if we insert keyframes for this value again, switch it up to 1, insert another keyframe. And now if we play back the animation, we can see the smoke moving and the camera moving, and it looks pretty good. Now at this point in the original After Effects tutorial, Andrew Kramer created a temporary comp or a pre-comp, whatever it is called, in order to use the smoke like we've adjusted it right now in a 3D environment, because the particles that are going to be added need to have a perspective camera to look kind of good. Right now we have our camera, if you remember, set to autographic, and we can't really change that, otherwise it would mess up everything that we've done. To get around it, we export what we have so far as an image sequence and later import this image sequence into a new Blender file and work from there. To export an image sequence, make sure that you're at 100% render size. Select a folder that you like, and then select either PNG or TIFF or whatever you want, but don't select JPEG because JPEG is a lossy format. And then if you hit this button right here, Animate, it's going to export every single frame of this animation out, and you can later re-import this animation as a plane again into Blender. I'm going to show you how to do this after I've exported this animation, and I'm going to stop the recording right now and come back when it's done. Now I've prepared a new Blender file. I have set the frame length to 96 frames, and I've moved the camera along the y-axis. Next, we're going to import our file sequence of the volcano that we've just exported. Select the first one. Make sure you select shadeless. We do not need to use alpha right now. And import the plane. Rotate it along the x-axis and change the viewport to texture. Scale it up so it's a bit bigger than the viewport, because we're going to add some camera shake, and if we wouldn't make it bigger we would get black edges. Next, in order to see the actual file sequence play out, we have to change under textures from single image to image sequence. Set the length of the image sequence to 96 frames and now we should be able to see the image sequence actually update. First of all, I'm going to set some keyframes for the camera to make sure the smoke cloud is always about in the center. Let's move the camera right a little bit, insert a keyframe for location, go to the last frame and make sure the image updates, and move the camera like this. And now the camera moves and in a way that the file sequence should, the smoke cloud in the file sequence should always be about in the center of the frame. Now to add some camera shake to this, insert a keyframe for rotation and then switch over to graph editor. We only want to work on the rotation and namely the Y rotation. Select that, press N to bring up the side menu and add a noise modifier. This adds a lot of random movement, but of course right now that's way too much. So let me bring this out here. We reduce the strength to something really slow, just so much. And that's still too much movement, so we increase the scale, and that's some bit lower maybe. That's some nice little movement, and now let's see how this plays out as an animation. Go to the start frame and there we have it, some nice little camera shake that goes around the image. Next thing we want to have is a lens flare. Now there's dozens of methods to add a lens flare in Blender. Just search for some tutorials on some really good ways. I'm going to use a very simple way, but the results will not be the best. Go to another layer, add a plane, and of this plane we just want a single vertex that's going to function as our origin point of the lens flare. Set the origin to geometry, move it up like so. This way we have it a bit in front of the actual image. And then in camera view, go to the last frame. We want to have it on the left side of the frame, and we want to have the lens flare origin point always a bit outside of the image. To make this a lens flare, just add a new material, let's call it flare, select halo, let's make it orange, let's increase the size to about 4 and make it a little bit softer, maybe like so. That's too much. Yeah, that looked good. Select extreme alpha and soft, and to get an actual lens flare, select flare, subflares, let's say 15, let's set. You kind of have to play around with all these settings because it's not very a very controlled way to get these lens flares. You really have to render out some and experiment with these values until you get, especially if you change the seed, you get some totally different flares. Let's bring it back to the one we had. That looks okay. And because we want to add this to the image later, it's better to have it on a black background. That way we can use the the screen method for overlaying these images over each other. To do that, we go into the compositing view. We already have one render layer with our original image. Oh, one thing I forgot. We actually have to, so we have this original render layer that should only show our image that we have on layer 1. And we add another one that we call flare. And this will only render out what we have on layer 2, which is our lens flare. Now, if we add another render layer, we can select flare and combine these two with a color mix node and screen. Now if we render this out, of course make sure that you have, for the actual rendering, you have to have both layers selected. And now we have kind of an orange glow on this side, and you can kind of see the yellow and the purple lens flare in there. Next, we want to add a particle system. Again, go to another layer, add a cube. Let's look at it in wireframe mode. Move it up on the y-axis and scale it so it is a good amount between the camera and the actual image. Scale it up so it really fills the screen. And this cube is going to function as our emitter for the particle system. Add a new particle system. We only want to have a few particles, like 100. And right now, if you play this back, the particles are created one after another. But we want the particles to be already there when the animation starts. So we set the start frame 20 frames before our animation starts, and we don't want any new particles after frame 1. In order for the particles to be visible throughout the entire animation, we make it 96 frames long, but we also have those 20 frames when they are created before the animation starts, so that's going to be our lifetime. And we want the particles to be created inside the volume of the cube. Next, we want the cache size to be 1. That way, the movement of the particles will be a bit more fluent. We don't want them to have any velocity at the start, and we want them to be a bit affected by gravity, just about so. And now if we play back the animation, we can see those particles fall very slowly. Maybe even a bit less gravity. Still a bit much for my taste. Let's say, yeah, that looks good. The particles are falling slowly, but in order to make this movement a little bit more random and natural, because near a volcano there would be some turbulence in the air, and we can simulate this by adding a force field, turbulence force field. Move it right inside of these particles and set, we don't want to have it too strong, so let's just set the strength like this and size relatively small and the flow at about this. Now let's play back our animation and we can see the particles falling and also right now they're just falling. Let's increase the strength again. It should. I know what's going on. The the force field should be on the same layer as the actual particle system in order for this to work. And now at strength 1 you can see them flowing around in the air like this. That's definitely too much. Now it works. You can see them dance a little like there's turbulence in the air. Next, we're going to take care of the rendering of these particles. We don't want the emitter to render. Deselect it right here. And we want to render it as a halo material. Select halo here, and we of course have to actually add the halo material. Call it particle like this. Select halo, give it a good gray color, dark gray. Let's decrease the hardness, so make it a bit softer. We don't want them to have to be too visible, so we decrease the alpha value. And we select extreme alpha and soft. And in order for us to see them in the render, because right now we have no render layer for them, let's add one. Let's call it particle. We only want the third layer to be rendered. And we go to compositor and just add a new render layer with the particle layer and screen this over our other image as well. Screen and get it into the output. Now let's just select the layer with the particle system just to see how it looks. And there are our particles. They could even be a little bit smaller. Let's say like so. That looks okay. And now we want to render all of it. It looks like this. Now, in a still image, the particles are hard to see because they're gray and most of the background is also gray, but hopefully in the complete animation you will see them a little bit better. And to check the animation out in kind of a RAM preview, we can go to Video Edit Mode, add our scene to the editor, press N in this viewport here, and deselect OpenGL Preview. This way we're going to get not what is seen inside the 3D view, but what comes out of the compositor. And if we hit Alt-A now, it starts to cache the animation into the RAM. And if you have troubles with this, it might be that your cache size in Blender is set too small. To increase the cache size, you definitely want to check out under File, User Preferences, there's a tab called System, and you can set the cache size there. And if you have cached it, you can now see the whole animation play out. The particles are kind of hard to see. I don't see them right now at all. So let's get back into the compositor and maybe let me see what if we increase the factor size, can we see them a little bit better? I tell you what, let's go back to default view and select our particle system. Probably setting the alpha so low wasn't a too good idea, and let's see what we're doing. Why on earth are they gone right now? I really have no idea what happened right now. I set the alpha too low. Now I have it. And let us out again. And that's too big. Too much particles. .5. Well, you get the idea. You simply have to tweak it a little bit until you can see everything, and that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed it and have fun with Blender.